Ladies and gentlemen, very excited to have on the pod today. What's your name again? I forget.
I'm still here, all right, Justin. Even when you think you're doing a podcast on your own,
yeah,
I'm in the background.
That's beautiful.
I'm always there cheering you on.
You're that guy. It's like that scene from Rocky, isn't it, really? You're just there on my shoulder.
I'm just there.
Yeah. Okay. Could you please get up? I have a very sore back.
You do? Yeah, I heard you say that.
I need help, and you're supposed to be helping.
Well, speaking of help, we got a great helper today on our podcast. How's that for a segue?
On the other side of the computer is my new mate and your old mate, Andrew Bibby. G'day, mate.
G'day. How you going? Not that old. Long-term, mate, let's say. Don't paint the picture. Still youthful, still in the prime, I'm sure. Well, but yeah, long-term, mate.
I was going to say the Botox is great. No, move on.
I think when we became mates, you know, our age difference is probably 7 years. But 7 years when you were probably 21, I was like 28. So that's a big...
We were both in our 20s together.
Are you proving that you can do arithmetic? Is that what's
happening? No, just working it out. But when you're in your 20s, that's like a big age gap.
That's a big age. You know, so Bibby was impressed at how adult you were, was it?
I was more impressed with how adult...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you two went on dates, who paid?
I think we used to have a thing, I remember, Bibbs. We used to have a thing when we'd go for a coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the days when we had coffee, we had sugar. But I used to have 1.5 sugars.
That's really like
we don't have sugar anymore in our coffee.
Remember when we were young?
We don't have sugar.
And now I say to the young people, what's with the sugar?
But what I'm saying is we had 1.5 sugars each in our coffee. So we'd each put one sugar in, tear the thing off. We'd get the other one, tear it off. He'd put half in his. I'd put half in mine. Do you remember that, Bib?
Yeah, waste not, want not.
Yeah.
Now I've got a picture of you two with the interlocked arms sipping coffee.
So were.
Now you say that was when I moved away from you.
Yeah.
Not away from you. No. I moved away from the city I lived in that you happened to also be in. It wasn't. Yes. Don't take it personally. It wasn't you that I moved away from. That was probably the time I stopped having sugar.
Because you came back to Melbourne. You were living in Perth. You came back to Melbourne. Yep. We went out for a coffee.
Yeah.
I got the one out. Got the other half, went to give it to you.
No.
And you said, sorry, I don't have sugar anymore. And I felt like...
And was there a little single tear? Single tear down the cheek?
You cheated on me. I'm like, how dare you?
Yeah, I cheated on you with the Atkins diet. How terrible.
That's terrible.
I so remember it. Now,
anyway, guys, look, I'm here to mediate. Bibbs, it sounds like Heath just wants an apology so you can move on. That's... Are you okay?
Yeah, look, next time I see you, mate, I'll go your halves on a sugar.
No. Don't you dare.
Yeah. Don't you dare. I'm over 50 now.
Yes, I know where you live, almost.
Just for context. Now, you two met years and years ago, but you met through, you've always been a helper, Heath McSullivan. You're a helpy kind of guy.
Yep.
You like helping the people that need the help.
Sure.
And you were working at Christian Blind Mission?
Yeah, CBM.
CBM. And just give us a bit of a context of how you two met in that space.
Yeah, gosh. So I was working at CBM, and I was at that stage, I was young enough to look after the youth program.
I'm just hearing a lot of regrets about young.
You know that you also worked as part of that youth team back in the day. Justin. Yes. But around that kind of time, it was a little bit after your time there. That's how this was. Andrew Bibby here, who we're talking with, if you were to Google Andrew Bibby, one of the things that would come up on your Google profile, I'm sure, Bibbs, is that you were on the TV show Neighbours for many years.
I was.
How many years were you on for?
Many years. I was on that for 5 years.
5 years, yeah.
Five years, from 95 to 2000, back in the day, the golden era when there were only 4 channels, or 5 if you counted SBS, but no one watched that. No internet, no Netflix. So that I was Lance.
You were a Lance, a TV soap star. Let's not call it anything other than that.
Come on. No, if you had a 6.9 glossy of your face, you were a star.
He was. No, there's no doubt he was.
Yeah.
And CBM, we approached Bibby to be the patron of our youth program.
Right.
So I didn't know Bibby from...
So can I just go back and apologise to you as an employee, because I don't think I knew that at the time. Did I do any work? Did anything I do in that job actually work out?
Look, let's not unpack that
Okay, all right,
because that's a whole other episode.
Oh dear. Okay, that's coming up in our failure episode.
But this is Bibby. So that's when you and I met, probably, I think, in like 1999, I think.
Yeah. It wasn't, if I remember correctly, it really wasn't a great pitch that you did then to get me on board. I think you've come a long way, but I think I remember you, because I was doing a radio show with one of your other mates.
Yes.
Ruben,
yeah,
and you sort of, I don't know, got my number from him or sidled in and
came in with half a sugar and was like, "Well,"
but he knew I was anyone's for half a sugar. And he goes, "Hey, look, you've got this profile. I've got this charity. Do you think we could maybe do something together?" And I've gone, "Yeah, sure, I'm in." There was a stunned silence for quite a few weeks of me going, "Yeah, sure. What are we going to do for the charity?" And you're like,
I didn't expect you to say yes."
Yeah, well, there's promote it, and there'll be things. We did come up with some good things. We came up with some great ideas. We did a lot of great work. Some extraordinary things that we got to see and do and achieved through my time there with the charity, and it was great. And from that exploitative relationship, that working relationship that started, we did develop a great friendship, and we ended up going overseas together quite a few times and hanging out and having lots of coffees with a sugar and a half. And I think I can pin the diabetes on you, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it all.
So can I just ask the most straightforward question, which is, at any point, did you guys move each other to the number one spot on your MySpace profiles?
Well, MySpace, I didn't have MySpace back then.
Oh, you weren't cool enough?
No, definitely not.
Wow.
I did, though, and still on my phone, because when you moved to Perth, Bibs, we would ring each other all the time. Remember, it was something weird that you could have like 20-minute free phone calls.
Optus, we were on.
Yeah, it was something like that. Because I remember your mum used to set the microwave for 20 minutes.
She'd set the timer. And it doesn't matter if you're mid-sentence, you did the...
You should hang up because of the charge. Anyway, so I moved Bibby to...
She would also yell at me on the phone because it's a very long way away. And that's not a joke. That's
very...
So she lives in Melbourne, I live in Sydney. She still yells on the phone. Yeah, not as loud, though, because Sydney's closer than Perth.
I immediately love your mum. That's great.
She's gold. Jill is just gold. But I moved you in my phone book on my phone, and I called you AB, as in Andrew Bibby, so that you would be the first on my phone. Because back in the day, you had to scroll into your...
So what you're saying is...
Yeah.
There was no MySpace interaction, but you were number one on his favourites.
Yeah, that's it.
In his Motorola flip phone.
Still to this day, you are AB. AB Chopper, and we don't even have to talk about why we called you Chopper. But anyway.
Was anyone's ear cut off at it?
Yeah, it was in relation to Chopper. But anyway, there's a whole...
You can't do that to us. This is a meandering podcast.
Now, I know we're going to meander, I tell you. Now, Can I tell you a quick story before we kick in and...
Have we started the interview yet? I can't tell.
No, before we start the interview.
Okay,
seriously.
Before we get going.
Start telling the first story.
I'll just go make a cuppa, shall
I? No.
Okay.
You want to hear this story. This story is for you and for those listening.
All right.
When we talked about getting Bibby onto the show, onto the podcast, I thought I'll reach out to Bibbs to see if he's happy to come on. Right. And I thought, there's a couple of things. Bibbs is traditionally not great at messaging back on SMS. Like, some people that are really good, they're on it. Bibby's not one of them. Not that it's
eventually.
It is eventually.
In a couple of days.
Yeah, correct.
You get a reply like, "Yeah, I'm well, thanks."
That's not the answer to the question you asked.
Correct. Exactly. So I'm thinking this day, how do I get Bibby's attention? Because I needed to sort of work out later that day, hey, are you interested? So I wanted him... And you're also a shift worker because you're a paramedic. So I didn't know, is he on night shift, day shift?
Shift worker with an F. Shift.
I did say that, shift.
I was
sorry.
D, but anyway, you're going the other way.
Okay,
yeah.
So I text Bibby, and look, I'm going to just read out the text message here.
I'm excited.
Because I'm trying to think.
Was it as good as you pitched for him to come and work with CBM?
It was better.
Almost. It got my attention.
I have to ask my manager.
Here we go. I wrote to him and said, "Hey fella, you going to be free tonight for a quick phone call after 8:30? Need to ask you a favour."
Oh, that sounds loaded.
Oh, right. Right.
That sounds loaded. That sounds like something's wrong.
Right.
Need to ask you a favour.
No, what?
Go on.
Come on, I need to ask you a favour. I specifically went with need to ask you a favour. So I ring Bibby. We have a few laughs for the first 5 minutes on the conversation.
Yeah, all the while he's nervous going, what's this favour?
Yes, and tell him what you thought, Bibby.
Well, you said, hey, I do this podcast. Would you like to be on it? And I just breathed this incredible sigh of relief because my mind had kind of leapt to, oh no, Heath has just found out he's got a terminal illness. He's got a short time to live and he wants me to speak at his funeral. What am I going to say?
It was that specific.
and I
Can we just stop and pray for a minute? You've just, the trauma.
Anyway, here we are. So,
right.
Bibbs, it's great to have you on.
So let's just point out that, so Heath got to know you through CBM. You were working at Neighbours at the time. You came on board as the promotional partner. What's the word?
Hey, it was like
Ambassador?
a patron.
Yeah. Ambassador.
Patron, yep. And
patron.
And then you went off to Whopper to do some further training in acting, I believe. And then...
Well, I left Neighbours and went to drama school to learn how to act properly, yes.
Can I just say, I kind of wanted to use that line myself.
Because you used it all the time.
The cheesy line was right there, and I left it alone.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm proud of myself for that. That's all.
It's very respectful.
No. Do you know what? I just at this point, I have to interject and say, I grew up in a house that was... We weren't allowed to watch Neighbours. We weren't allowed to. We were
Conservative house.
Conservative. That's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to be nice to my parents.
Yeah.
But we weren't allowed to watch Home and Away or Neighbours or anything. So the only Neighbours context I had was the swap cards that we used to get at the milk bar.
Oh.
So I had swap. There was swap. You used to get a stick of chewing gum with them.
Oh wow! Are you on a swap card, Bibby?
I think it was maybe before your era though. I think it was the. I don't think
I made the swap cards.
The Kylie and Jason.
The Kylie and Jason era where they're getting married, and so that's the only way I knew anything about Neighbours. You go to Whopper. At Whopper, you meet your wife or your future wife. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we were both so WAPO, the WA Academy of Performing Arts, has a very well-renowned acting school. Graduates the likes of Hugh Jackman went there. My wife was there as well. I didn't know at the time, of course, but yeah, we met each other there, and that was very exciting as we got to know each other and fell in love with each other. And then once we finished drama school, we went, well, where are we going to? The industry wasn't enormous. Well, it's not enormous in Australia, and it certainly wasn't enormous in Perth. So we went, well, it's either going to be Melbourne or Sydney. She was from Sydney. I'm from Melbourne. So it was almost a toss of the coin. And we moved to Sydney together. We are still very much together and have a family together now. And then I was sort of acting around the place in Sydney for about 10 years. But the thing is that when you're acting in Sydney, you do more time out of work than you do in. Well, that was my experience anyway, more time out of work than in acting work. And so I was working a few part-time jobs around the place, being I was a projectionist in a couple of cinemas and things like that, doing bits and pieces here and there, and had some great fun, fulfilling jobs. But then I turned 30 and I had a child on the way. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I've got a little bit more to offer the world than projecting films in a cinema and hoping to get the next Uncle Toby's ad, and then not getting the next Uncle Toby. And so there was, it's sort of, I loved acting. I love acting. I love performing, and I never fell out of love of doing it, but I did fall out of love with the lifestyle that it takes to turn it into a career. So applied for the Ambos, and one of the great appealing things about the ambulance service in New South Wales at that time was that they would pay you to train with 0 credentials before that. So as someone with a child on the way, obviously that paternal instinct kicks in, and you want to provide for your children. And so I actually applied for the ambulance the week that my first son was born, and it's a government organisation, so it took them about 9 months to get back to me after my application went in.
Wow.
But it turned out I was fortunate enough to get in. And so then, went through their training program. And that's somewhere I've been now for 14 and a half years.
14? Is that how much time is it? So you now have a 14-year-old son?
Yeah, 14-year-old son. I've got a 14-year-old son, a 12-year-old son, nearly 13, and a 10-year-old daughter.
So you are fully qualified to tell the jokes, walk around in your jocks, and I don't know, what else do you get? as a father. That's about it, actually.
He can make wee-oo noises while he walks around too, because he's ambulance,
All right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Kids love.
They'd love that, wouldn't they?
Do the kids get to? Have you let the kids in the car? Can they turn have they turned the siren on? How to go at the siren?
Yes. So it's interesting as the ages change. So when they were little, can we come to work? Let's play this with the siren. How cool.
Mm-hmm.
And now when I drop them off, so I've got a responder car because I'm a single responder up here now. No one wants to work with me. So they just shifted me to the side by myself. Now it's all about, Dad, not in the ambulance. Oh, don't do the light. I'm like, I'll put the lights on, son. I'll put the siren. You get out. Oh, Dad.
Yeah. I could just see you at the school lineup. Bibby's here.
Yeah.
And every morning I make the same joke. There's traffic. We're stuck at the red light, and don't worry, mate. I've got a way around this if we need it. Oh no, Dad. Every morning, never gets old.
Can I just say, in this day and age of internet shows, just put some cameras in the car. That's a show waiting to happen. Is there any correlation between the way you care for patients and the way, like, as far as that whole approach to, because dads are, you're trying to be the safe person for your children, obviously. Part of what you would do, surely, for people, because you meet them in traumatic situations, and you're there to calm them. Is there any correlation between the skills you've learnt in the two spaces, as extreme as those are?
There is. There is. And the thing that I fail at all the time, and the thing that still astounds me, is I can do a day at work where I can see people at their worst. I can be with families who've just lost loved ones. I can be with people having mental health crises and sometimes literally on the edge, and I can bring calm and compassion and patience, and I'm quite good at it. I'm empathetic and gifted in that way, and can it's a skill I've been blessed with. I can bring calm to that, and I come home. And 15 minutes after being through that door, all those skills desert, and I am ranting like a lunatic at my children. I'm kicking the dog. Look, there certainly would be times where the skills would cross over if I could muster it somehow to do it at home. But the thing that the kids don't like so much is when you do spend your days with these traumatic patients or medical emergencies, is that my tolerance for what is sick and what is deserving of attention has kind of lessened a little bit. And I think this is a bit common with a lot of medical people. My daughter Isla was the other day. Was, oh look, someone fell over. I went, yeah, but they were they were standing on the ground. They fell from the floor to the floor. That's the deal. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, if they fell from the roof to the floor, then I might be interested. But this is, they were on the ground to start with. There's just more of them on the ground now.
Now I want to know what the threshold for getting a day off school is in the Bibby household.
No, mate, if you're breathing and telling me you're sick, you're well enough to go to school.
All right, that's all we've got time for.
I really should say at this point that all of my comments are my own, and in no way representative of the organisation that I work for.
They do not reflect any. Yeah. So you're in a space where you're dealing with pretty extreme things all the time. One of the things we've been talking about is protecting our children, and I guess the father figures conversation is about help for fathers. In whatever situation they're in, parenting their children. And one of the things we are very good at is doing the tactile things, the things right in front of us, the things we can see. We've been talking a little bit about the kind of the hidden world where kids are on devices all the time. They're experiencing things we never did as children. They're, potentially even speaking to strangers online. We used to worry, our parents used to say, don't talk to strangers on the street. Now we're trying to protect them from, bots online. Do you have any rules in your house now that you've got teenagers? Do you have any rules in your house around that sort of safety?
Yeah, and they're sort of always evolving, I guess, as we try to stay one step ahead of them, which is really, really hard. So the kids are aware that I was on telly, and that comes up quite a bit, particularly when they're looking at social media and that sort of thing. And so I try and kid them a little bit as if that I know more about it than I do, but I really don't. It's something that my wife and I have paid a lot of attention to. We're really quite. It's a concern, isn't it? Because you don't know what they're doing all the time. They're very good at locking themselves up with screens, putting themselves away either in their rooms or whatever. We in our house we try to enforce a rule where screens, if they're being used, are out in the open.
Yep.
In open spaces so that we can see what's going on. So only my eldest kid has a phone. The other two don't yet. He got that halfway through year 7.
Yep.
One of our attempts was that we wanted him to experience at least the first half of a year of high school without a phone, because we were aware of all the pressures and dangers of social media in young people. We gave him a phone on the proviso that it was our phone. It was something that we were lending him. So it wasn't a right of his. It was something that could be taken away from him at any moment, something that could be audited by parents if we need to. We tell him about all the parental locks and things that we've got on that phone. That is still the case. There are times where I say, all right, mate, you've got to share me with this. And I think the other super handy thing, and we're lucky that, our kids have a parent to choose from. They've got a choice of which parent they want to come to. And there are times where I'll demand he shows me something on his phone. He says, well, I'll show mum, not you. I go, right. And so that can be a bit of a blow to the ego because, you're a super parent and you want to be that really great, dad that's got the intense relationship with his son. But I think that there've been some times where I've had to forego that part of it, like let my ego take a little bit of a hit and go, all right, if mum's the choice for whatever reason, then show mum, and at least we know that, there's someone that he can talk to.
Either way, like you said, you've got the two parents there, which is a blessing, and the kids are able to, you're giving them safe conversations to have, and there's an open conversation in the household. So you're not necessarily saying you can't have them and they're just, we've talked to some parents that they just don't do screens except on the weekends, or they've got more sort of, I was going to use the word extreme, just different rules. I don't know how my kids could actually function in their education lives even without having access to the devices they have. So I'm really appreciating how you're sharing this, man. It's great. Sorry, go on.
The other thing I try to do is, I figure that they're going to get it anyway, right?
Yeah.
If you ban it, rule it out, they're going to get it some way, or the desire to have it at least is going to be there.
Yeah.
We try and talk to our kids very openly about what our concerns are. We've tried to make it clear in our minds, what are we actually scared of? Like, screens is just far too broad. And so we try and be specific with them about, we're scared of gaming stealing your time because it just robs you of your time far too easily. You don't understand how quickly time goes. We're scared of social media for all the things we hear about the bullying or the disconnections that can occur through that. And also the stranger danger. You don't really know who you're talking to on the internet sometimes. And so we're very clear about that rather than trying to make it doom or gloom. We're trying to educate the kids about it. And to be fair, I think they've had more education at schools these days than we ever had about it. We've sort of learnt the lessons the hard way, and so trying to look at it from a positive space too. What can screens or social media or that sort of stuff, what can it offer them? What is it about it that the kids are loving? There is connection. And I think, I did for a long time sort of bash my head against the wall going, no, connection is when you're out with your mates. We always talk about being outside, like inside, such a bad thing. But in Australia, it's always go outside, get some fresh air. I don't know what's so wrong with the air in my house, but go outside, get some fresh air, play with your mates, ride your bikes up and down the street. That's what we were doing. Now, if I think back, to be honest, that's not what I was doing. I'd like to think, that's what I was, but I wasn't. I heard it said this week, online is a place now. This is where they meet. This is the playground. This is in the street. This is where they're congregating. We just want to make sure they congregate there safely, and well and healthfully. So we have those conversations openly with the kids as much as we can. It's a conversation we're always going to have. It's often full of deaf ears, I think, but at least we've got to show the persistence just to keep having that convo with them. And then where I can, I try and engage with them on the social media. There's that sort of thought of, well, meet your kid where they're at. Don't make them where you are, meet them where they're at. So if they're in that online space, I try and meet them there. Not in a creepy way, but I will try and engage with my son on Instagram. We'll share clips. And it's actually kind of very sweet and engaging when he sends me stuff that really does make me laugh. And I think, wow, he gets my humor. He knows what what I'm like. I'll send him stuff that I think is funny. And then, we'll do that through the day and then we'll talk about it, later at night. And then I'll say, well, why'd you have your phone on at school, mate? And
what was interesting is last year I kept up to date with the NBA finals
Oh, yeah, because one of your kids?
Because Noah was sending me stuff during school hours.
No, I have the same.
And I'm like, dude, it's you will get demerits, whatever. He's out of school. He's finished school now.
Yeah.
But like, it was just, I was like, thanks. I didn't know that the team had won the game and the things. But I tell you, Bibbs, the lovely thing that you've just shared, and I think Heath and I have talked about it. My 19-year-old will now come to me and say, "Have you watched my TikToks yet?"
Yeah.
And then he'll lie on my bed and hold his phone in front of me, and we go through TikToks together. Yeah. And if I don't laugh, he moves on. Or sometimes he does flick a little faster for a second. Like, okay, you don't want me to see that? Okay.
Yeah.
But you're right. I enjoy. It's actually a point of connection for us now. And again, he's a grown adult now, so but he's still under my roof. But yeah,
my son Aiden, he was looking at something on Instagram the other day. And he's laughing. Oh, you'll love this one. I go, oh, what? Show me. And we're standing across the room. He goes, okay. And I go, well, show me. I sent it to
you. Different families and the way they connect.
Yeah.
So my kids will offer me a hug sometimes. Sometimes they'll ask for a hug.
Yeah.
But it's still very much that I'm more of the
you're the guy.
I'm grabbing you for a hug. Yeah. So sometimes, like I say, sometimes the sharing of the screen is the way to get that emotional closeness for that moment, that proximity. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So nothing weird. I didn't write the text message poorly. It was Heath. It's Heath that's the one you want to worry about. Sorry,
I think with the boys, and men often too, they talk about it's harder to have. Sometimes it can be harder to have direct, deep connection, and it's often better to have a distraction there. It's why men go and play pool or darts at the pub. That there's something else that their attention is, but they're there doing it together, and through doing that comes some conversation. Yeah. And I think the screen can be a point of that with your male kids sometimes, whether that is, shooting people to death in some sort of first-person shooter on the Xbox or sharing funny clips. You got to be careful. Can't go too overboard. I felt a little bit old the other day where I sent Aiden this poem that I'd found on Instagram, and it was all about not fearing failure, and that failure is a springboard for growth, and the art of failure and how it can turn you into a better person. And I sent it to him.
Will be a man, my friend.
He replied, and he just wrote, not going to read all that. So, okay.
and the dagger went into your heart.
Oh, that is gold. That is gold. Bibbs reminded me, you were talking before about, the online is where people congregate, and it's so easy to get sucked into the wrong things online. And it took me back to when we travelled together. I think it was our first time together where we went to the UK. So you were on Neighbours at the time. We went to the UK, and Neighbours is huge, and so
and bigger in the UK,
much bigger than it was even in Australia at the time. And so there was this whole thing of, Bibby's going to be recognised everywhere we go. And there was something around that same time where Ian Smith, who played Harold, had been in a hotel room. The door. Somebody knocked at his hotel room door, and I don't know, he maybe got out of the shower and he had a towel on, opens the door, and there was a photographer.
This is like something out of Notting Hill.
Yeah, that took a photo. Yeah.
Wow.
So I remember when we sort of joked about it, but we literally had a thing that in the hotel room, if anybody knocked at the door, I had to go and I had to undress and put a towel on, but that was the extent of the danger of getting caught out doing something.
A photographer
had to come to the room to, whereas now the danger of doing something stupid on your phone or your kids doing something stupid on their phone and it going global or, even local is enormous.
Well, we often reflect on, I did high school too. There's just no record of it. There's one page in the yearbook that might have my picture in it. And our kids are going through. So for you, Bibbs, I mean, the schools you picked and is there anything you worry about? I mean, does your past affect how you think about the kids' exposure now is probably the question.
I think it does. I'm super paranoid about fame. Fame wasn't nasty to me and I benefited from it, but it also did a little bit of mental health damage to me and made me sort of put my guard up a little bit or a lot. There's not a heap of me that's publicly accessible on social media because of that. When I was on Neighbours, we had a publicist, and we were, everything that you did that was that went public was highly curated and looked after, and there was, it was all manufactured in order to promote something, the show. Whereas these days, everyone's out to promote anything they want, and usually themselves. So when I talk to the kids about it, I look at it, the difference between creating and consuming. On the social media, there's a handful of people that create and so many more that consume. If my kids want to be involved in social media, I encourage them to create, use it as a creative outlet. I know you're both creative and you can see some incredible things on there, but I think if you get too sucked into just the consuming part of it, you get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed and you can end up feeling like you're a second-rate person. I'm conscious of that for them. I'm protective of them. I'm always telling them that whatever they put out online is there forever, and be careful of that. But who knows how this is going to be, because all their peers are also doing the same thing. Like, it's going to be a whole generation of people that have got stuff online that's been there forever, and it is the way of the world now. If I was searching for a new job or a new career without socials, I don't know where I'd be. I've got friends who are doing great things. I've got two friends who are authors that have just released books. Part of their publishing contract is that they have to have, X amount of posts on social media about the book every week or month to satisfy their contract. So it's a big deal now. And I think that if we get our kids good at using it, good at creating it, knowing what they're trying to promote, that was the other thing. Any publicity I ever did was to promote either the show or CBM when we were working together, Heath. That was where the publicity became a focus, and where, for me, that was the first time fame became useful, to direct that attention into something that I felt was worthwhile, not getting more viewers to get the ratings of Neighbours up and therefore earn advertising dollars. But that seemed very useful. I think if our kids can have something that they're passionate about, something they want to promote, that isn't just about look at my fake lifestyle, social media can be very, very powerful and useful.
Where are you at the moment in that journey? Could you be a creator again, do you think?
Maybe. Maybe, I don't know. I'm fulfilled enough with the responsibility of my three kids and my family and the work that I have, and I kind of like achieving great things on a very quiet scale. And I know that through our as a father, we impact our kids immeasurably, and a lot of the impact the world will never ever know. And similarly at work, I can have the most incredible day helping someone deliver a baby, or saving someone from death, or easing a family into their grief in as best calming way that I can, and come home and feel very, very fulfilled and know that I had a very lasting impact on that family, but no one else will know that. And the fact that no one else knows, does that lessen the impact that I've had on that family? I don't think so.
And I would suggest, again, we've talked about the false economy of the online space. The looking after one's own soul is still going to be the best thing you can do for your kids is to make sure you're there at the end, and that you're, because this is what I find so beautifully balancing about figuring out fatherhood. If I'm anxious, my kids know before I do. If dad's, I've not, and more they're verbalizing that, Dad, the mood's swinging in the house, because that's how much impact you have. And if you can get them into that space of, this is where your help comes from, I'll be the safe person for you. But you've obviously also got a good community around you that holds you together as well, right?
Yeah, it does. And what I've learned too is that when you come home from a big day at work, although I want to be the safe person for my kids, sometimes I need to accept that I need a little bit of help from them, or from my wife, or from the family. And sometimes I'm, even after 14 or 15 years doing this job, I'm learning that I sometimes need to come home and go, you know what, I just need to take a moment. I need some time. Or instead of just telling you, everything's fine, everything was a safe day, I now am at a point where I can go, actually, I had a horrible day today. I saw some terrible things that you don't need to know about, but I'm not, I need to take a little bit from you today. I can't give what I do all the time. And you know what? That is so remarkable how well they all step up to that, and so heartwarming. And I'm very blessed, and I think sometimes I can sell my kids short by thinking that they can't do that for me.
The emotional intelligence of our children is beyond most of what we understand, and they are the barometer of what's going on in our family so often, aren't they? Final comments, Brother Heath?
Oh, man, Bibby, every time I spend time with you, it's always so rich. There's so much laughter. There's so much joy that we have had in our friendship and continue to have. And I'm so grateful that you've been able to share that with us on this podcast. And keep saving lives, man.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for staying well.
I was watching that ambulance TV show not that long ago, maybe 6 months ago.
Just to calm yourself down, one.
I like watching it. I'm an ex sort of paramedic, so I love reminding myself of the things that I can't remember anymore. And it was at a job that Bibby went to, but there was probably, I feel like maybe 6 other paramedics on the job. And they're all, doing their thing. And then they said, in comes the incident controller to, look after the job. And I knew it would be Bibby because I knew it was in his area.
Right.
He's the only guy wearing the safety vest, had the helmet on, he'd donned the gloves, he had a mask. Yep. Everyone else is almost like in shorts and T-shirts doing it. I'm like, well, that's Bibby right there. I knew it from the aerial shot that was Bibby.
Aerial shot.
They did an aerial shot.
Loving this relationship.
And I'm like, oh my goodness, that is Bibby walking in right there. So
can I just say the aerial shot of you is pretty obvious too.
That is true. There's a good landing pad up there as well.
Oh my goodness.
Mate, thanks, Bibby.
Thanks, mate. So good to hang out, and thanks for trying to figure out fatherhood with us.
Yep, we can only keep trying. Thanks, guys.